My brothers and sisters, today we must talk about a moment that many believers know, but very few like to admit. The moment when you feel finished. The moment when your strength has run out. The moment when your prayers feel heavy. The moment when you sit quietly and ask yourself a question that feels almost dangerous to say out loud. Lord, are you still here? Let us be honest today. Faith is powerful, but sometimes the journey is heavy, very heavy. Some of you listening today have been holding on for a long time. You have been brave. You have been strong. You kept showing up. You kept praying. You kept believing. But inside your heart, you know the truth. This season has been overwhelming. It has been exhausting. You have cried more tears than you ever thought you would. You have prayed prayers that came from deep places in your soul. And now you feel something you did not expect. You feel empty. You feel like you have reached the end of your strength, the end of your patience, the end of your emotional fuel. You feel like you have nothing left in the tank. Your faith feels tired. Your hope feels fragile. Your spirit feels like it has been carrying a mountain. And you are asking yourself, God, what do you say when someone reaches this point? Now listen carefully, because the Bible is full of people who reached that exact place. Men and women who thought it was over. Men and women who thought their story had ended in defeat. Men and women who looked at their situation and saw no way forward. But in their darkest moments, God spoke. And when God speaks, the ending changes. Let us start with a man named Moses. Moses had reached the Red Sea. Behind him was Pharaoh's army. In front of him was the ocean. On both sides was wilderness. It looked like the end. The people were panicking. They were crying. They were accusing Moses. Why did you bring us here to die? In human logic, they were right. The situation looked impossible. But God said something powerful. He said, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the people to move forward." Move forward, not retreat, not surrender. Move forward. Then God told Moses to stretch out his staff, and when Moses obeyed, something incredible happened. The sea opened. The water stood like walls. The impossible became a pathway. The place that looked like their grave became their escape. Now hear this clearly. God did not remove the sea. God opened it. Sometimes God does not remove the obstacle. He transforms it into the road. Now let's talk about David. David stood in front of Goliath. A giant, a warrior, a man trained for battle since childhood. David was a shepherd boy. No armor, no sword, just a sling. Everyone said the same thing. This is impossible. But David remembered something. He remembered what God had already done. He said, "The Lord who delivered me from the lion and the bear will deliver me from this giant." And one stone later, the giant was on the ground. The battle that looked impossible became a testimony. Now let's talk about Elijah. Elijah was one of the most powerful prophets in the Bible. He called down fire from heaven. He defeated the prophets of Baal. But after that great victory, something happened. A woman named Jezebel threatened him, and Elijah ran. The great prophet ran into the wilderness and sat under a tree. And do you know what he said? "Lord, take my life." He was exhausted. He was overwhelmed. He had reached the end of his emotional strength. Even great prophets can reach that place. But what did God do? God did not scold him. God did not shame him. God sent an angel. The angel brought food. The angel brought water. And the angel said something very simple. "Get up and eat, because the journey is too much for you." Listen carefully. God acknowledged the weight. God knew it had been heavy. God knew the journey had been overwhelming. But God did not end Elijah's story there. After rest came restoration. After restoration came renewed purpose. Now let's talk about Job. Job lost everything: his wealth, his children, his health, his reputation. Everything collapsed. Even his friends accused him. They believed he must have done something wrong. Job cried out to God. He questioned God. He wrestled with pain. But Job did something powerful. He refused to abandon his faith. He said, "Though he slay me, yet I will trust him." And in the end, God restored him. Double the blessing, double the restoration. Now, let's talk about Rahab. Rahab lived in Jericho. She was not an Israelite. She was not raised in the covenant. She was not raised among the chosen people. She was known as a prostitute. By society standards, she was the last person anyone expected God to use. But Rahab heard something. She heard about the God of Israel. She heard about the miracles. She heard about the Red Sea. She heard about the victories God had given his people. And something happened inside her heart. She believed. Not because she grew up in Israel, not because she had religious training, but because her spirit recognized the truth. She told the spies something powerful. "I know that the Lord has given you this land." Not maybe, not possibly. She said, "I know." Faith. That was the difference. She protected the spies. She believed in the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And when Jericho fell, the entire city was destroyed, except one house, Rahab's house. She and her family were saved. But the story didn't end there. Rahab later became part of Israel. She married into the people of God. She gave birth to descendants. And when you read the genealogy of Jesus Christ in the Gospel of Matthew, you see something astonishing. Rahab, the woman society rejected, became one of the great-grandmothers in the lineage of the Messiah. Why? Because she believed. Faith changed her destiny. Now, listen carefully to what this means for you. God does not write people off the way society does. God does not look at your past and say, "Too late." God does not look at your mistakes and say, "Disqualified." God looks for faith. And when God finds faith, he begins writing a new future. Now, let me speak directly to the person who feels like they're at the end. You have been strong. You have been brave. You kept going when nobody knew how hard it was. You smiled when you were breaking inside. You prayed when your voice was shaking. You believed when the evidence looked terrible. But now you feel like you can't go any further. Your tears have run dry. Your strength feels gone. Your faith feels weak. Let me tell you something powerful. God knows. God knows how heavy it has been. God knows the nights you cried alone. God knows the prayers that came from deep places in your soul. God knows the weight you have been carrying, and God has not abandoned you. When God speaks, things change. When God declares a promise, it does not return empty. If God says restoration is coming, restoration will come. If God says victory is coming, victory will come. If God says your story is not finished, then the final chapter has not been written. So today, I ask you the question that forms the title of this message. What did God say to you when you were down? Because the voice of defeat says, it's over. But the voice of God says, stand up. The voice of defeat says, you have nothing left. But the voice of God says, my strength is made perfect in weakness. The voice of defeat says, you are finished. But the voice of God says, I am not done with you. And when God says something will happen, it will come to pass. Not because of human strength, not because of human ability, but because God's word carries power. So hold on. Even if your grip feels weak, even if your faith feels small, even if you feel like you are standing on the edge of exhaustion, hold on. Because the same God who spoke to Moses, David, Elijah, Job, and Rahab is still speaking today. And when God speaks life over your situation, something powerful happens. Hope returns, strength returns, purpose returns. And one day you will look back at the season that nearly broke you, and you will say something amazing. I thought it was the end, but God was just beginning.